Welcome to episode 70 of The Leap Home. Roberto.
In this week's episode, Sam has to help a colleague report on an unusual and potentially explosive news story when some sheep and later an employee from Saxton Fertilisers are killed. After discovering a secret lab, the pair are initially thwarted when their investigation hits a brick wall. But can Sam keep his partner alive long enough to crack the case? Or is this one just too big to be put right?
What should I buy with $100? Shoes? No, something more personal.
How about lingerie? I'll help.
Good morning, Ian. How are things?
Not too bad. Is that a new outfit you're wearing there?
$100 worth.
Indeed. Very personal.
You helped. You should know.
Indeed.
Help me try it on.
Chose the colour.
I like this week's episode.
I've got a note here. It's a fun episode and there's decent chemistry between the two leads.
Yes. It reminded me a little bit of Fletch Lives.
Well, it reminded me a bit of Sledgehammer.
Did it?
I just thought the relationship between the two was, with the taunting and stuff, it was a little bit like the Sledge and Dory relationship.
Yeah, but Sam wasn't as bumbling.
No, it's not identical, but just
So you mean two people working together? A man and a woman working
it just
together?
gave me vibes that were similar.
Okay. If you like Sledgehammer, there's a podcast you could listen to.
Sledgecast.
There you go.
One review said it's better than the show. That really upset the creator of the show, remember that?
Yeah, he used to speak to us.
Until you saw that review in the LA Times. Before we get started, let's rattle off these socials. We're at Leap Home Podcast on all the usual social media channels, including Twitter and Facebook. There are show notes available at theleaphome.com where you can leave comments or thoughts. And if you want to hear next week's episode right now, head to Columbo Podcast Productions, where it is available, like all of the episodes, 1 week ahead of the podcast release.
That you?
I'm done.
Let's crack on. Before we investigate this week's episode, I think you've got an error, or is it an omission that you want to...
Well, more of an omission than an error, because we didn't do anything particularly wrong, but there was one moment in last week's episode where during the trivia, the actor who played Junior,
Okay.
Kurt Deutsch, we talked about his acting career, which was fairly nondescript.
Before you continue here, you say we, is there some sort of collective responsibility in this omission?
For all things on the show, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't touch on his second career.
You didn't? No.
So he's actually, I'll get this title right because I don't want to undersell it. His job title is Senior Vice President at Warner Music, Entertainment and Theatrical Ventures, which is a fairly big job at Warner.
Yeah, it sounds impressive.
He's a big shot away from acting.
An executive, yeah.
So I think it bears mentioning.
Yeah, it warranted a little a nod to it.
So
he's not done much since then.
He's not done much as an actor since then. We'll rephrase it that way. And apologies to him for that.
Yeah, well, obviously I've listened to last week's podcast and he'll be complaining about it before he hears this week.
He'll have been waiting for weeks for his episode to come up.
Yeah. And
now that it has and he's not mentioned, or his achievements aren't mentioned, he's going to be very upset.
Anyway, where do we begin this week?
It's very similar to the end of last week's episode, isn't it?
TV studio. Sam leaps into the titular talk show host, caught in the middle of a physical argument with a Hell's Angel and I think it's an animal rights activist.
Well, according to the credits, it's Man with Glasses.
And ends up getting headbutted for his trouble. And we have the, oh boy.
A good blow to the head is always a nice cover for Sam, as we mentioned previously.
We have said that, yeah, you should use it more often.
Yes. After the credits, we return to this TV studio and we learn that it's the 27th of January, 1982.
As the show director, or the floor manager, hands him his lines and tells him to wrap up the show, which he does. And we get, I think it's a really inventive, I appreciated this. It was a great effect where we see the real Roberto through the lens of the camera, or the viewer.
Yes, so you never see a reflection in this episode, so Sam doesn't see what he looks like himself. But yes, we see it as the viewers of the TV show would see it.
A nice technique.
Very clever. Credit to the director for that one.
Okay. He reads out the salacious topics for upcoming shows, including the following days, which I think revolves around centrefolds and feminists.
Well, yeah, but he acts like he can't read.
Right.
I understand that he's new to this person, but you can read off a bit of card a bit better than he does here.
I think you might be nervous, I'm not sure.
He has just also taken a blow to the head.
Mm-hmm. I think the Hell's Angel that we saw, he's keen to return when he hears about the centrefolds.
No doubt. After the show ends, Sam is approached by women, I think, from the audience looking for his autograph and perhaps a bit more.
You think?
Well, they certainly seem to court his attention.
Okay. On this occasion, Sam declines any offer like that, as the floor manager lets him know that the switchboard is hot and that Earl, I think he's the boss,
yes,
wants to see him pronto.
He points him in the right direction when Sam heads off the wrong way, and we see a woman handing Sam some ice for his head.
Before heading into the main office, and hopes that the leap goes smoother from that point out.
It's hard to prepare for a headbutt from a stranger. I found this setup bizarre.
In what way?
You've got a TV studio, and then through the doors you've got a newsroom. He walked through like 2 sets of doors, and he was...
Well, they'd be nearby.
Maybe if it's a local do-everything sort of setup.
In any case, inside the office, he receives a little cheer from most of the staff, with the exception of a blonde woman who is clearly not a fan of his.
No, I think her name is Janny.
Not Jenny?
No, stupid name.
Not Janet?
She quips that he'll be wanting hazardous duty pay now and might end up with a nice masculine scar like he's always wanted.
You get the impression immediately that she feels that he is upstaging her. She's looking to be a little bit more centre of attention.
I also got the impression that she maybe isn't that impressed with his show and the type of topic that it covers.
No, I think she sees herself or wants to be a more serious journalist. Well,
he's a tabloid.
Yeah. We also see her take a little puff on her inhaler.
Well, she did do quite a long monologue.
Yeah, just as Al arrives. And she mentions that she's got bad lungs and these are the reason why she is working there. And Al, of course, is immediately taken by her.
As soon as Al shows up, Sam blurts out his name and has to cover it by telling Janny that I'll be leaving you alone now.
Yeah. Does he not blame it on his Führer-inflicted injury?
No, because that's talking to Al.
Ah, right.
Al asks what happened to his head, and he says he was headbutted by the Führer. I think that's a reference to the helmet.
And at this point, Al tries to bring him up to speed with what he knows, while Sam uses the phone as a cover to have this discussion. We've mentioned this before.
Yeah,
so
good technique.
perfectly, yeah.
Although sometimes in this episode he seems to talk as if nobody can hear him when he's right next to people, which I find odd. Anyway, Al tells him he's Roberto Gutierrez working for KDNM TV in Destiny, New Mexico. Yeah,
he's a type of Geraldo character.
Ratings are rising, and his smart mouth, which has limited his career up until this point, is now paying off.
Yeah, and he's to continue to act wise, although he's not so confident that that's his personality. But Al says, follow my leader, listen to me. And as mentioned, we hear that his boss is indeed impressed with how he is doing.
Now there's a man who can take a shot. How's the bean? Okay. Still in one piece, huh? Good, huh? Hey, maybe you could do it again tomorrow. That'd be killer.
This is Earl Skipper, the station manager and the news director.
We should capitalize on this thing. Play it for all it's worth. Maybe we could even build a few shows around it, huh?
I'll tell you what, why don't you lie down in the parking lot and I'll accidentally back over you with my car. Probably we can get a whole week out of that.
I like it.
Roberto would never let her get away with that. Try this. What's the matter? Did you fall off your broomstick this morning?
What's the matter? Did you fall off your broomstick this morning? Kids, behave or no dinner. Now, let me see.
This is Jenny Eisenberg. She's an investigative reporter. She was a big hotshot in Chicago, but then she moved out here to New Mexico because of her health. She's got asthma.
Now, what do you got coming up that we can shove up against this headbutt thing and really make it roll, huh? Coming up?
Yeah, is it next?
Johnny, go to your room.
He wants to know if you got any ideas for upcoming shows.
Yeah. Well, I got this idea.
Tell him you got one about Elvis, or one about
Elvis show.
Natural, about sex. That always sells.
Oh, yeah, women who claim to have slept with Elvis's ghost. Oh, I love it. Save it for sweeps.
And the Kennedys.
I got
Elizabeth
a Kennedy
Taylor,
story
Robin
about
Cradle, and the mob.
This guy claims that he's JFK's evil twin. Oh! Only he just escaped from the sanitarium where he's been his whole life. Oh, I love it. What else?
Yeah, I'd like to see that one, too.
Women who try too hard? Maybe you can get one of them to punch you. I'm just kidding. No, we'll go with what's scheduled. And we'll do a follow-up next week. It'll be great.
Let's hope the world can hold its breath that long.
Stay on her, Sam.
And what earth-shaking story are you working on?
Gas stations that promise full service but don't deliver.
Now there's a national emergency.
Get me the president.
$50 $2 says you couldn't do a serious and hard-hitting story if your life depended on it.
Double it. 100 says I can do any story you can.
Fine.
Fine.
So as we heard there at this point, she takes the call.
Yes, it's Sam's $50 or $100, as it turns out, story, and she doesn't take checks.
I liked, this is something you don't see anymore, and it's very, as soon as you witness it, it's very much of the 80s. Women who remove a clip-on earring to use the phone. That used to be a thing.
Did it?
Yeah.
I have no recollection.
Do you know? Oh no, that was all in the movies, whatever, yeah. Taking it out, putting the phone up. I don't know why women don't have clip-on earrings anymore.
I think some maybe do.
Think so?
Or, yeah. I think you certainly get
For
unpierced earrings.
kids.
I don't know. It's not something I've ever got involved in too much.
Okay. So this call, where did it take them?
Takes them to a roadside where they're speaking to a country fellow called Red Norton.
He's a hillbilly. He's got a shotgun.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's in the woods somewhere, isn't it?
Well, you see a main road behind them.
I would, with him and that shotgun, I would be worried that he's going to make me squeal like a pig. He looks the type.
Maybe. You don't know what his intentions are, but he does seem to be friendly.
Yeah, too friendly. And what's his tale? What did he witness?
Aliens. He didn't see, he admits, the mothership, but he knew it must be nearby.
Coincidentally, he saw this just after leaving a bar.
He did 20 minutes after he left the bar, around 2:30 a.m, but he's able to describe them.
How many were there?
Oh, don't know.
At least 12.
At least 12?
Yeah.
Well, he says they had one big eye.
Oh.
They were yellow with big blobby arms and legs.
Just sort of hanging around.
Indeed.
Janny finds it amusing that Sam won't be winning their bet with this story and walks off. And as Sam steps away from the hillbilly, Al points out with a touch of melancholy that not far over the mountains is the home of Project Quantum Leap.
Yep, and it'll be built in 7 years' time. So that points it out as 1989.
Yeah, and Sam realises that Al's there right now.
Yes, so he's not far physically from where he actually is, yeah?
Yeah. Obviously not in 1982. He's there at this point in the chamber.
He is. Janny, at this point, shouts Sam over and starts wondering, as we heard at the top of the show, how she's going to spend her $100.
She thinks perhaps some wine, but Sam amuses Al by asking her if it goes with Crow as they get back into their car.
That's terrible.
That's
terrible patter.
Yeah.
We now find them at a chemical plant, the aforementioned, or as I mentioned in the introduction, Saxton Fertilizers.
Yeah, they're covering a more grown-up story at the local plant as they walk and talk with the owner, Ed Saxton, who is describing how successful the company has been and the jobs that will be created on the back of this.
There was one obvious sign of the company's success.
What was that?
The golden hard hats that both Saxton and Janny were wearing.
Okay.
Very shiny. She finishes this walk and talk by dropping her inhaler and her hard hat. And
Well, it's not just that. She has a bit of an asthma attack.
she does. And the guy that picks them up to help her, you can tell he's got a sore hand. He's bandaged and he winces.
This is some Sam magic here. Like, why would Sam think this is... Someone who works in a chemical plant in a factory has got a slightly bandaged hand.
Yeah.
And Sam immediately pinpoints that this is significant.
Well, he asks about it, but Saxton's got
Why would you? It's not your business. This guy's got a sore hand. He might have a skin disease or anything else.
Maybe.
Bad at eczema.
Journalist's instinct. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Saxton has a cover story. He says there was a small fire and this guy burnt his hand, extinguishing the fire.
Yeah, the fire was the previous evening, I think. Now, she notes that she heard nothing of this. I thought, why? It's a
Why would
small
you?
internal fire. It's not. Who's going to report this to the news and why would they?
Well, we learn later on that the news was suppressed
Yeah, but I know, but
at this stage.
why
it
would
doesn't
she
make
think,
sense, yeah.
I didn't hear anything about it, as if
Well, maybe fire at the chemical plant would seem like
it was a small
story.
fire that didn't require the fire brigade.
Yeah.
It's like a bin was set alight.
There are no more details forthcoming anyway, and Sam drops back from the group to speak with Al.
Yeah, I think the rest of them continue with the tour of the plant. Al's not happy.
He's very concerned, in fact.
Well, he's annoyed. He's annoyed that Sam is not confident that he will have any relevant information. I think he thinks that Janny's negative attitude has rubbed off on him.
However, he is able to relate to Sam vital knowledge.
What's that?
Janny is about to die.
When?
2 days hence, driving her car off a cliff.
Off a cliff?
Sam asks him for some details, and it turns out that nobody was ever charged, and the police report simply blamed it on fatigue.
Yeah, it wasn't recorded as a suicide or murder. It looks like, she simply fell asleep at the wheel. And he is told that the last 2 stories that she was working on were lightweight puff pieces.
Well, it's the one that she talked about in the office about the gas stations.
However, what happened to Roberto?
Right after this accident, he drops out of presenting his show and quits TV completely.
Now, Sam understands what Al might be implying, but disagrees or dismisses the notion that he is a killer, and makes a good point that even if he was in the original timeline,
he just won't do it. Yeah.
Easy solution. He does, however, agree that it must be related to Jani's death, as Al is distracted by 3 employees walking by in hazmat suits.
Yeah, but we learn later that there's just something about them that he can't quite put his finger on.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, Jani shouts over to Sam that he better get back to the studio because he's got his 4 p.m. live broadcast to deal with.
And so he agrees with Al that he will stick tight to her and make sure she doesn't drive.
In the studio now we have the live show, and it's the one that he trailed the previous day.
Yeah, it's a padded scene for one reason only. So it's a discussion between, I think it's Playboy or strippers and
It's 2 college students in bikinis who've posed for a calendar.
and a feminist who thinks that
A real life feminist playing herself.
was it?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get to her in the trivia.
But this is a scene which is only there because the director of this episode obviously was keen that Scott Bakula, not for the first time or the second time or even a number of times now, has stripped off. He's really, really proud of his early 90s dad bod.
Who was this perverted director?
Well, you could tell me, aren't you?
Oh, we'll find out later on.
Right, but obviously, yeah, he really wanted to, and I'm sure that Scott Bakula did not want to do this.
Oh, you had to be persuaded.
Really
obviously,
shy.
by the man behind the camera.
Hates getting his top off. Thinks he's got a terrible body and doesn't want to.
By today's standards.
It's quite like I say, it's just a very average, not a lot of muscle tone, but he's keen.
No.
I think remember back in, was it How the Test Was Won? He was throwing bales of hay well oiled up, and
He was.
yeah, and the one where he was a beauty contest, the Miss Deep South.
Yep.
He was in high heels and a bathing suit. He loves it.
And he had the naked play.
The
Not that
naked
long
play,
ago.
yep. And I think even with the psychic one, there was a montage of him making love to. He probably used top off for that.
The witch, yeah.
The witch, yeah. Yeah, Scott Bakula seems really... Again, I'm assuming that it's always just the directors who
It
want
must have
this.
been in his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Has to do what he's told.
To be fair, I think they know what the ladies like.
It's like that time in Star Trek when they made William Shatner pretend he was a horse and crawl around the stage. Remember that one?
Yeah. Anyway, so this scene ends with Sam trying to prove a point by stripping down to his underwear.
Yeah, the crowd seems to enjoy that.
Afterwards, in the office, he, for some reason, tries to pretend that he feels humiliated.
Well, first of all, he says he's destroyed Roberto's career, which Al says is not true. He was a huge success. And also, he's never been so humiliated in his life. It's literally only 3 weeks since he did that play when he was
naked
fully
play, yeah.
naked
Yeah.
and said that was the most humiliating experience of his life.
Yeah. I mean, he had a massive out here. He did not need to strip off.
He could have said,
No, I'm
No.
not doing that. I'm
Yeah.
a TV presenter.
Anyway, Jani at this point wanders over and catches him talking to Al.
Yeah, and we catch Al checking out her ass.
Well, that seems to be his thing. He's had his eye on her since he first showed up this week.
Who's on the phone?
It's a call about someone or something that's gone missing.
What?
Sheep.
How many?
6?
50.
56.
50.
Exactly 50?
Yes.
Al's going to look into this, and Jani says she can smell a real story.
Yeah, because it's at the same place where the hillbilly apparently saw the aliens.
Yeah, there must be a connection.
Yeah, she's quite sort of pepped up by this. She got the juices flowing
The
again.
reporter's itch. At this point, Sam takes a very unusual call.
Yes, just after noticing that Saxton is in the building talking to Earl.
Important later.
Mm-hmm. Who's the call from?
It's Rick, the man with the sore hand that we saw earlier.
Who intriguingly wants to speak to him that night at a local bar.
Sam agrees to meet and immediately brings Jani in on this.
And she's quite excited. And you can see the dynamic of this relationship changing. They're becoming more of a team, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't, as a competitive instinct that Sam had. He didn't try and shut her out and take this for himself and then prove to her, I can do this story. He wanted her part of the investigation.
So later that night, they arrive at the bar or outside it.
There's some ominous scenes here.
Only to discover that the place is crawling with cops and ambulances and find that, I think his name's Upfield.
I think his first name's Rick.
Okay, Upfield.
Let's go through it.
Let's not get too personal. Upfield was killed outside it in a hit and run.
Janny doesn't want to walk away from what she thinks is a big story, but Sam insists.
Well, she says he was murdered. I mean, that's quite the assumption.
Yeah.
Sam agrees, but he leads her away from the scene and doesn't want her to tell the cops about the call. Why not?
Well, because he's got this reporter's instinct that tells him something's going on here.
Yep.
He's got a sore hand and he's been murdered.
But why would Sam not want to just let the police deal with this? Sam's not a journalist. And it's nothing to do with the leap.
Because he knows he has to save Janny. So he's maybe thinking, maybe this is what gets her killed.
Sorry. Saving Janny is better to investigate, for the two of them to investigate it on their own, rather than simply giving it to the police and then saying, okay, they're dealing with it now, Janny, don't get involved.
Well, I suspect he just wants to put things on a hold for now until he susses out what's going on. As they back off, they find something.
It's Upfield's security pass.
Janny immediately wants to hand this to the police, but again, it's Sam who says no.
He says he can't. He says it won't go anywhere. Where's he getting this information? Why is he thinking this?
It's like there's been a scene missed or something.
Yeah, that the cops have been bought off by the most powerful businessman in town. But there's nothing to suggest
no
that.
Indication of it.
No. It says that they've got no time and need to solve it themselves. This is just ridiculous. You're putting her in danger. You're literally going to a place where you know there's a killer and messing around, and you're trying to save this woman's life.
Putting her in harm's way.
Yeah. Back at the station, they are looking
at the station?
Yeah.
I thought it was someone's apartment.
No.
They had a sofa.
No, it's a station at this point, because they're looking through the Saxton footage from earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Which allows Sam to get to know Janny and himself a bit better.
Why don't you go home?
And let you win $100?
Is that what you got on TV, for the money?
No, hardly. When I first started, I had very altruistic motives. I wanted fame, glory, and power. Unfortunately, somebody forgot to tell my asthma. I had really big dreams. The network, my own show. I was gonna crack the biggest stories that have ever been cracked. But it's kind of hard to compete with the big boys when you can't even live in their cities.
You got a big story now.
Which is at a complete dead end. Oh, what about you? Why did you get into this business?
Well, I kind of just leaped into it by accident. Sort of like it now. I never really thought much about why, you know. I guess I kind of see myself as a champion of underdogs everywhere.
I like that.
Yeah, I've continued support for my regular customers, and what with the new government contracts, we expect to have an increase in...
Look.
What?
Look.
He's not wearing it, and neither
Neither's anybody else.
So either they just got them.
This is for another section of the plant, something we didn't see.
Okay, so first thing tomorrow
No,
morning.
no. Tonight, we gotta go tonight. Tonight.
All right, tonight.
All right.
Tonight.
Before we get to what he found there, it's interesting that Sam says there that, and you believe that he's actually talking genuinely about himself.
Yeah.
That he's getting used to the leaping and he actually quite likes it now, you know, going from time to time, banging chicks that he quite fancies. But it sort of contradicts the whole credits where it says, he wishes his next leap was his leap home.
He's never expressed that view in the show.
Never. Literally, I don't think he's ever said to Sam, to Al, get me back, I need to go home. Where's my wife? Other than the ones where Don Alisi was, involved.
The last time they talked about him trying to leap back, I think, was it not the one with the mafia wedding in the first season? They were trying to time up a certain leap to try and get him home, and that they've never mentioned it since. He's never asked about it since. They don't seem to be working on it.
No. Even if he can't remember, he knows that he does have this life. So you'd be curious.
Yeah,
you'd be constantly asking for information. And anyway,
yeah.
So at the end of the clip there, what did they find? It was I thought it was a little bit.
He spoke. Oh, this is really, really tenuous. They weren't wearing ID in the area that they visited.
Right.
So they're off to the plant that night.
Because, they must have another pass for another part of the plant.
Section.
That is
That is vague and tenuous. I don't like it.
No. In any case, they're at the plant, and after pretending that they're looking for Janny's lost earring, the dopey foreman...
I should mention that they didn't come up with that plan until they were walking towards the foreman. You'd think they'd have that in advance.
He's putting her right in the centre of danger here.
Yeah.
So the foreman allows them to look about the place on their own, although neither of them or Al knows exactly what they expect to find at this point.
Yes, Janny says that Mr. Saxton has permitted this, and they comment that after they get into the factory that he's not going to phone the boss at 3 a.m, but I think they've maybe misunderestimated things here.
Al does, however, tell Sam that the pass that he found is also a key, and that he's got to find the door that it fits.
Yeah, it's like a swipe card.
Probably early 80s, that was new technology.
Yeah, he talks about Quantum Leap now having electronic implants in people's arms.
Yeah, not far off it, I don't think.
Yeah.
He leaves to get Ziggy to do some sort of spatial comparison of the place, I think to find this hidden room, and promptly returns to direct them to a semi-secreted door.
Well, just before that, though, Janny suggests that they should be looking through the walls using the X-ray specs you find on the back of magazines.
Yeah, and when Sam says it as a kid has never worked, I think she says, yeah, well, all the girls' dresses were...
Specially treated, yeah. Meanwhile, however, as they find this door that Al's pointing them to, we see two goons and Hank looking for unauthorised visitors.
At the secret room, and before the goons arrive, Sam and Janny have been able to get access to it. And what do they find?
They find yellow suits that look a lot like the description of aliens they got from Red Norton earlier in the episode.
So they make their way back in a panic as they realise that the plant could be involved in chemical warfare and that the accident earlier caused the death of the local sheep.
I enjoyed in this scene, did you notice Al surfing on the side of their cart?
No, was he?
Basically, he's just standing there cruising along while they're driving the car. It was really good.
You would do that?
Yeah, so they come to this conclusion that there's been an accident, killed the sheep. They've used the hazmat suits to collect the sheep and killed Rick when he looked like he was going to expose them.
I've got questions about this, the logistical and practical arrangements that would have to be set up here. But we can talk about that a little bit later, I think. Sam and Al also list numerous other incidents.
Including one in 1968, which I've got some trivia about later on.
Keep it for later, I think.
Yeah. Al at this point realises what it was that was bugging him earlier about the people he saw.
Oh, what's that?
They're clearly military.
Yeah. At this point, the foreman and the goons catch up with him, and they've got to make a sharp exit, claiming that they found the earring. Surely even in 1982, there would be security cameras all over this place.
Well, you would think. If they've got electronic doors.
Yeah.
Even if it's analogue, recording to tape, it would still be something.
They'd be a guard at a desk monitoring it, yeah. Now, Al thinks that, well, yeah, I said talk about it later, but maybe we can talk about it just now. Al thinks that Saxton should be or will be jailed for these activities. If you're manufacturing chemical weapons, you're not doing this off your own back
as a terrorist
and hoping to sell it to some other country or agency. This will be for the US government. They'll be contracted and they will know what's going on. So I'm not sure why Saxton has to get involved in any sort of cover-ups. If it's exposed, then it's up to the
I mean, the reason that Al's saying he's going to go to prison is because someone's murdered Rick.
Yeah, but he's murdered Rick.
Why did they do that?
Yeah, why? So my thinking is that they've legitimately got this chemical plant and the US government needs or wants to use that facility to manufacture these weapons.
Yes.
Rather than build a facility from scratch.
Yeah.
Why would you? So they went to him and they've paid him off and said, right, you're now making this either wholly or as a side hustle. So he's not doing anything illegal in that sense. Or maybe he is, but he's not responsible.
The only way it makes sense to me is if it's not the US government.
Yes, but you'd have to. There's no indication that it's not.
It's a private militia.
Yeah, no. Well, you see, they talk about the military people that are there. These are military, either current military servicemen working in the plant or ex.
They may not be Americans.
You would have to have.
Could be Cuban.
Yeah, or Russians.
Well, yeah, Cubans as a proxy for Russians, I suppose.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just not sure why Saxon's getting involved in all this. And that doesn't.
They could have done a bit where he turns out to be Russian and it is the Russians. That would have made more sense, but maybe they don't want to antagonise and put that sort of thing on Quantum Leap.
I think in the 80s they were quite happy to antagonise.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, they had one with the nuclear shelters.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, at this point, and as they have left, Jani, she's almost
Euphoric.
euphoric. Well, yeah, it's almost a sexual release. She pushes Sam up. I thought she was going to kiss him. Pushes Sam up against the wall and presses against him.
It's just journalistic juices.
And in this state of euphoria, rhetorically asks if he's up for taking on the government. So, they think it's the government.
Yeah, Sam replies that he hasn't anything better to do this week, so she gives him a hug and says that Earl is going to love this.
However, to her surprise, back at the station, Earl is not as keen as she assumed that he would be with such a big story.
No, he says that Saxton has done a lot for the town, and at this point Sam realises when he saw Saxton here earlier, it was to nix the story about the fire.
Mm-hmm. But he then states that the next time it might be people and not sheep that end up dying. Or
yeah, Earl looks like this is persuasive to him.
Yeah, and agrees to give them a camera to do a live report. This is weird because, okay, so we next see them at I think Earl and the team are watching this live report on their TV, and we see the pair at the plant attempting to reveal to the world what they found the previous evening. How would they get in there? This is very dodgy, very unethical.
Well, it's open during the day.
You can't walk in with a camera crew to a private facility. There'll be all sorts of security. In any case, we see Earl and the rest of the team watch on as Sam and Jani's ad hoc investigation comes off the rails.
3 nights ago, over 50 sheep were killed by what...
Excuse me, can I help you?
Sam, there is something here, but we don't have the details yet.
Mr. Saxton, it is true, is it not, that you are conducting secret nerve gas and chemical warfare research in a hidden lab here at the plant?
No, it is not true. I wish it were. I understand the government pays very well for that stuff.
And how do you explain this electronic key pass that opens a secret door inside this room? A door which is in the back of this innocent-looking storage room.
Sam, look, they changed the lock on the damn thing. I know it's the same door, but they changed it.
I'm a dead man.
Does that look like a secret lab to you?
No. What it looks like is that they constructed a fake wall, which conceals the tunnel which leads to the secret lab.
Oh, really? Doesn't sound fake to me.
Pull the plug.
Pull the plug! Pull the plug!
Sam, you stall. I'm going to check on this wall.
Okay, now I know that this doesn't sound like a
Sam,
fake wall.
it's still here. They got this elaborate fake wall.
But, if you...
There's 6 feet of dirt back here, but then you're in.
If you could walk through this wall, you would see the tunnel on the other side. And, well...
Save it, Ernesto. Earl pulled the plug.
No. All we have to do is dig through the tunnel and
It's
we'll
too
find...
late.
I thought we were going to find out that Earl was also in the whole conspiracy, but
Well, he at least was willing to suppress a story, so
but
we had that leading in.
but I don't think he'd. No, I mean, he allowed Sam to go there and do this. He's not.
No. Yeah, that initial impression was overturned by his subsequent actions.
That bit also reminded me a little bit of Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Okay.
Eddie Murphy sees a counterfeiting operation, but by the time he gets the cops involved, they've changed the press and it's now printing fake theme park money.
Ah, okay. A smug Saxton at this point demands an apology, which Sam offers him.
Well, yeah, he's initially outraged, but he shocks Jani and Al by then agreeing to one if he will do it on his show the next day.
Jani is outraged and shows the ID card, and this is answered by Saxton.
Well, yeah, he says this is just a badge, and he goes to take it before Sam stops him and claims that the police should have it as evidence as they found out where Upfield was killed.
That leads to far more questions.
Yeah, why have you got it? Why did you not hand it
Why
in?
have you brought it here?
Yeah. But unable to argue with this logic, Saxton says that he wants to put up a reward for information related to the driver who killed his employee and agrees to think about doing it on the show.
Yes, he tells Sam he should call him the next morning to finalise an appearance, at which point Jani thinks Sam's letting Saxton off the hook.
But he says he's trying to buy some time and would appreciate cooperation. She admits to feeling like she is a step behind what's going on here.
No wonder he's getting information fed to him from the future. Al remarks that this is how it feels when you work with a genius.
Yeah, he declines to use this quip in response, but does listen when he tells him that Jani now dies the following morning from an asthma attack.
Ooh. We get a quick shot of Sam wrapping up his next live show with people who are in love with vegetables.
Now, there was nothing too phallic there.
That was an aubergine, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and a pineapple.
Yeah, but there was no cucumber or bananas.
Okay.
I think that'd be too much for the network to
perhaps
suggest. In any case, Al at this point insists that there is no chance that he can nail Saxton, only to be interrupted by a cheer when Earl informs the room that he's going to lunch.
Very popular fellow, obviously.
Obviously. Al continues after this. He points out that without any evidence, they won't get a search warrant to look for the room again.
Sam, at this point, notices Jani trying to hack into a database using the ID card.
This is a very 90s hack, isn't it? You see it on TV all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, the 5-digit whatever, yeah.
The 500-digit password at this point.
Yes. But there's no way that she's sitting there going to break into a...
Trying different combinations.
Yeah.
Especially when you see what Sam has to type in to get access.
Yes. Well, this is weird. He doesn't think it'll be any use, as Saxton will have his own internal security system, according to him. But he then takes over and, using Upfield's badge, begins to brute force the password with the help of Al. I mean...
I don't really understand what's going on there.
What they try to do?
Ziggy's reading out combinations via
but why?
Al.
For what? To see what?
To hack into their payroll, to see if they're getting money from the government.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
I don't understand it at all, yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, much later on, it's night time and Sam's still trying to get into the database.
We get, they've almost given up, I think. Or certainly Jani has. And we get a nice shot where we see the screen reflected in her glasses, which she's laid down. A little bit Columbo-esque, I would say.
Yeah. Sam has to apologise for being a bit abrasive, saying that he's tired and frustrated. Yep. But just then, there's a ping and they have access.
They are in. However, the hack has been discovered by the foreman who tells...
There's a twist here, isn't there?
Yeah, who tells Saxton, who himself makes a call to kill Jani and then buy off Sam, as apparently the two deaths would look a bit too suspicious.
I loved some of the language used here. There's a hacker on the computer line from the TV station.
How would they be able to identify that?
I assume Hank's not just a foreman, given what we're
No, but even the technology, I'm not sure, within seconds they would have the ability to pinpoint where a hack's... detect a hack and then pinpoint where it's coming from.
Well, if it's dial-up.
Okay.
Anyhow, yes, Hank clearly not a foreman at this point.
No, he's a henchman, yeah. Meanwhile, back at the studio, Sam is reading through the files that he's gained access to and works out that the chemicals being used are likely to cause breathing problems.
Well, he says that there's ingredients in the fertiliser that can be used to kill people and make it look like an asthma attack. It's very specific.
Yes. They then realise that their hack has been discovered, and Sam highlights to Jani that this means they are both likely to be on the sort of kill list.
Jani says, bring it on.
Yes.
And then falls asleep.
This was terrible, this part.
Oh, it was a plan.
One of the worst. I don't understand how this could be a plan. So Sam is in the same room at the computer.
Yes.
Reading these files. She is sitting behind him at a desk and has apparently fallen asleep.
Yes.
We see the foreman creep in.
Somehow
gets access to a TV studio. That there'll be a security guard on the and then locked doors.
Yeah.
But he's getting into the room, and
his plan isn't in any way subtle either, is it? It's just to sneak up behind them, swap her inhaler over.
This is a dreadful, dreadful plan. There is no way that he would know that inhaler, for one, would be accessible. It might be in her jeans pocket, it could be in her bag. She's awake, holding it, it's beside her, they're both sitting with each other. There's no way he could realise that would be the circumstance.
The way it's presented to us,
infuriating.
Sam is just sitting there oblivious to this guy in the room behind him.
A quiet room, any noise you'd hear.
It's not possible to sneak up.
It's not, no. What did he think was going to happen? Oh, she will definitely be in that situation, asleep, and I can just... What was he going to do if she was awake and her bag was in front of her on the desk? Then what would you then, big man, go on?
He maybe just spray it in her face so she suffocates.
But then he'd have to kill Sam.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't want to kill Sam. The boss said,
he's going to pay Sam off.
Maybe not for murdering her. It's not.
I didn't try to murder.
Oh, anyway.
Shambolic stuff. Let's put it that way.
So later that night, early morning, a distraught Sam calls Saxton at home to deliver the terrible news and come to an arrangement.
Mr. Saxton, it's Roberto on line 3.
Put him through. Hello?
She's dead.
Dead? Who?
You know damn well who. Jenny Eisenberg.
Yeah, that's tragic. How did it happen?
A severe asthma attack, as if you didn't know.
I didn't know people could die.
How'd you do it?
Do it?
How'd you kill her? How'd you do it?
Is that going to be the theme of your show today?
You're damn right it is.
If you go on the air with that charge, I'll sue you, the station, and everybody connected with that show. And I'll win because there's no way in hell you can prove I induced an asthma attack, and you know it.
You're probably right.
That's the first reasonable thing you've said this morning. Now, I'd like to set up a scholarship fund in Miss Eisenberg's memory. I'll have a check cut this morning for, say, $50,000 in your name as trustee.
I'll accept on one condition.
I'm listening.
You agree to do my show?
No.
Not even if I apologize? Not even if I admit that I was wrong about you and your plant?
Why would you do that?
To make that scholarship $100,000.
I did. I had you figured.
Yeah, I guess you were right.
We now skip ahead to the live show where we assume Saxton has agreed to come on and accept his apology.
Sam welcomes viewers to his show, What Happens When Reporters Are Wrong. That's a terrible title.
Yeah, he kind of came up with that in the moment and stuck with it.
Before claiming he is the reporter and then taking time to remember his colleague Janny.
This is a very weird thing to do on television.
Yeah, the audience gasp at this news and the crew bow their heads before they go on with the show and Saxton is introduced.
Sam notes that the previous day he accused Mr. Saxton of running a secret chemical weapons lab and wants to apologise for that.
However, he only concedes to having no proof about the dead sheep rather than being wrong.
Yes, it was just one man's word against another and he would have needed evidence to get a warrant.
However, Saxton starts to get uncomfortable when Sam continues to talk about how he would have needed some corroborating evidence before producing Janny's inhaler.
He asks Saxton how easy it would be to add a chemical.
A deadly chemical.
To an inhaler, yes, to use it to kill a reporter.
Who was trying to expose his secret weapons lab.
Saxton says it doesn't prove anything, but...
Yeah, well, he unconvincingly attempts to dismiss this nonsense. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard at all.
No, he's then undermined when there's a twist in the presentation.
Yeah, he's visibly shocked when the door opens and Janny herself walks in.
At this point, Sam sprays the inhaler near Saxton, who panics.
Yeah, he reacts as if he's been burned until Sam tells him that it was only a standard spray, but that the real weapon is now with the police.
At this point, Janny hands him the search warrant that they've been able to obtain, and he tries to storm off. Why would she have the search warrant? Why would the police say, I know what you can do. We do need to search his secret chemical weapons lab, but let's do it on television.
Well, maybe they might be quite enamoured with her, and she uses her womanly charms to ask the cop if she can do it.
Or maybe it's the fact that they know where he's going to be. He's appearing live on telly at this moment. We can get him here.
Yeah. So he tries to sort of run off, but he's chased by the cops. And at this, I'll give Sam the good news.
Yes, Sam's told that Saxton will be indicted and convicted of both murder and attempted murder.
Sam then wraps up the show with some ridiculous upcoming stories, including one about when he himself was kidnapped by aliens.
Saxton's led off by the police, and Janny says that she owes Sam $100.
Does she? Why?
Because he reported the story.
Oh, yeah, the chemical plant story.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
He offers to buy her some champagne instead, but she simply says, nah.
And at this point, Sam leaps. Why was that the trigger for the leap?
I think he was about to leap anyway.
Okay. Where does he end up?
This is brilliant. He leaps into a taxi driver and immediately distracted by his own reflection, he mows down a pedestrian.
No, he literally runs over someone.
Yes.
Oh boy.
They are dead. And that's the end. I thought there was some similarities to the way that Stranger Things is set up without the supernatural element.
Yeah.
The whole plant
Sure.
that's poisoning the town and the people don't know about it.
So are you suggesting Stranger Things has copied Quantum Leap?
I suspect maybe they're both inspired by similar
Real life
things, yeah. Did you like that little wrap up at the end?
It's all right.
Well, do you not realise what he was doing?
Who?
Sam. He's describing the experience of the guy that he leaped into, who's now in a white room in the future, waiting to come back. So when Roberto comes back, he will have had that experience that Sam just described.
Ah, no, I didn't recognise that. Yes. Okay, that was nice. Yeah, well done.
Yeah. How do you think it played out after the inhalers were switched? Do you think she wasn't asleep at all and they just said, he's switched my inhaler?
That's weird. It's just such a bad plan that I can't even think how you would anticipate that.
Yeah. Well, you would think they would put that in the episode.
Because if you think he's coming to kill Janny, you can't say, right,
he's definitely going to switch the inhalers.
Yeah.
Well, no, because Sam knows she's going to die of an asthma attack.
But maybe, or it looks like an asthma attack. Maybe he he chokes or suffocates her.
But he's made the connection, so he's seen on the computer that they can produce this chemical that looks like an asthma attack. So he now knows that they're going to use that to try and kill her.
Yeah, but even then, he knows
he
things
doesn't know
change.
through an inhaler. He doesn't know. They could just spray it on her.
It went from a car crash to an asthma attack. Things kind of changed.
Yeah.
You can't take that risk. And she's got to, she says she's got to lie there, not move while a killer comes up, because he's got to explain to her how he knows this. Why would she trust him?
I suppose he's selling it as I found this information. This is something they might try and do. Yeah. Trivia? You ready?
Go for it.
Originally aired on the 11th of March 1992, the perverted director who insisted that Scott Bakula stripped to his boxers was...
This deviant, who is he?
It was Scott Bakula, the second of his 3 directorial
there
stints on the show. We'll save his bio for next season.
Well directed, I thought.
Oh, he did a good job.
Yeah.
I loved the idea of the camera that we talked about earlier on being how you see Roberto's real image. The writer was Chris Rupenthal. We've heard about him before. This was the 9th of his 10 episodes, and if you want to hear more about him, go back to the podcast for Good Morning Peoria. Janny Eisenberg was played by Delane Matthews. This was her only Quantum Leap. She's also been in things like Nip Tuck, Diagnosis Murder, Dave's World was one of her prominent roles, Murphy Brown. I think she appeared opposite Scott Bakula in a show.
Mm-hmm. Was it Intruders or something
along
like
those
that?
lines.
Invaders?
Yeah. She's now 62. Her last screen credit was in 2012. She has a very lightly followed Instagram account, and a lot of it details spinal issues that she's dealt with. She puts up a lot of x-ray images of metalwork in her spine.
Really? And how, was it an accident or a...
I think she's had some sort of curvature thing. It looks painful.
I'm sure.
Earl Skinner was played by Alan Oppenheimer.
Well, that's a
familiar sounding name, isn't it?
A topical name.
This was his only Quantum Leap. He's best known as a voice actor. He famously played the voices of Skeletor and Man-at-Arms in the 80s He-Man and She-Ra cartoons.
The most famous Oppenheimer, I would say.
Yeah, he's also appeared on or voiced characters in things like Toy Story 4, Star Trek's Next Generation, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, Murder, She Wrote, and he was the voice of Mighty Mouse.
Oh.
He's very distantly related to Robert Oppenheimer, the physicist.
Is he?
Third cousin, so that means they share a great-great-grandparent.
Ah, well, you would still boast about it if...
Yeah, I think I couldn't tell you who's related to me by that distance, and I would consider that not related, to be honest. He's now 93 and has worked as recently as 2022, so still active.
Certainly no one would raise an eyebrow if you pumped them.
What? Oh, yes.
If you're a relative of that distance, you would quite happily marry them.
It's beyond the incest threshold. Ed Saxton was played by the villainous Jerry Hardin.
Now, I know him from, I'm sure you're going to tell me, as soon as I saw him, I thought of The Firm.
That's not what everybody else is thinking.
Is it not?
So, this was his only Quantum Leap, but he's probably best known as Deep Throat from the X-Files.
Yeah, yes.
But he's also appeared in shows like Star Trek Next Generation, where he played Samuel Clemens in the classic 2-parter Time's Arrow, Star Trek Voyager, Big Trouble in Little China, The Firm, as you said, Twilight Zone. He's now 94. His last screen credit was in 2014, about 10 years ago. That was not going to date well if people are listening to this in 10 years. Michael Heintzman played Tim.
Who's Tim? The director? Floor manager?
Sure, let's go with that. This was his only quantum leap. He also appeared in shows like the US adaptation of Red Dwarf, which was terrible, Murphy Brown, Flight of the Conchords. His last screen credit was in 2009. He's a published playwright. Rick Upfield was played by Marcus Giamatti. This was his only quantum leap. He's also in things like Judging Amy, House, The X-Files and Fringe. He's also a professional bass guitarist, much like yourself.
Well, apart from the professional part.
Well, yes.
Or even the bass guitarist part.
He's now 62. He's still active. One of the guys you enjoyed was Donald Gibb. Played Jeters, the Hell's Angel at the start.
In fact, I'm going to correct you there. Actually, looking back about 30 years ago, I was paid for a gig. I was in a band and we got paid, so technically...
You're correcting yourself, I said you.
Yeah, so technically I have been professional. Anyway.
This was Gibbs' only quantum leap. He almost had an NFL career, but it was cut short before it began when he was injured in a car crash and he turned to acting. He's appeared in things like Conan the Barbarian, Revenge of the Nerds 2, Revenge of the Nerds 4, he wasn't in the third one, X-Files and Seinfeld.
Did you mention Bloodsport?
No, he was probably in that as well.
He was in Bloodsport.
He's now 69. He's the co-owner of a karaoke bar in Chicago called Trader Todd's, and his last screen credit was in 2011. Laura Schlesinger played herself. This was her only quantum leap. She hosts a popular radio/podcast talk show, which has been airing for over 30 years. She's a best-selling author, sailboat racing champion, a black belt in Hapkido, which is a Korean martial art.
And I'm sure she's an all-round good guy.
She has also quoted some controversy by expressing views considered by many to be both homophobic and racist.
That's disappointing.
She's now 77 and still broadcasting.
Unfortunately.
Red Norton, you'll remember him.
Yes.
He was played by Dennis Fimple, you'll remember him.
Good name.
This was his only quantum leap. He also appeared in things like ER, Alias, Smith & Jones, the 1976 King Kong remake, which was widely panned, and 2 episodes of Sledgehammer.
Remind me.
He was an informant in They Shoot Hammers, Don't They? And he played a character called Shy Eddie in If I Had a Little Hammer.
There you go.
He died in 2002 at the age of 61 after a car accident. Hank, the foreman, was played by Victor Talmadge. This was his only quantum leap. He's also appeared in Star Trek Enterprise, Stargate SG-1, Copycat, Naked Souls opposite Dean Stockwell. He's now 68. His last screen credit was in 2015, but he's a professor of practice and the director of the Theatre Studies program at Mills College at Northwestern University in Oakland, California. On to the trivia. I promised some sheep information.
For our friends in Aberdeen and Wales.
A lot of this story, and Sam referenced it in the episode, it's similar to what happened in the Dugway sheep incident, which is also known as the Skull Valley sheep kill.
Okay.
So March 1968, 6,000 sheep were killed on ranches near a US Army chemical and biological warfare program at the Dugway Proving Ground in Utah. This was never admitted until well after this episode aired in 1998, when a report said that it was a nerve agent that killed the sheep. There's a movie, 1972 movie called Rage, that's based on the same incident, and it also inspired Stephen King's novel The Stand. In terms of things that we learned, we've got Project Quantum Leap being built in 1989 in New Mexico.
On this day, the only thing in fact, I've got a couple of things here.
I've got a couple of things.
I'll go for mine first, and I'm sure we'll maybe get the same.
Right.
It was the opening night of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which went on to run for 747 performances.
In New York, and still runs today, worldwide.
My only other piece of trivia would be, and it's just because it's a coincidence, Roberto Cordova was installed as president of Honduras.
I've got a couple more. So the Irish government collapsed after losing a vote in its budget that day. And on the 30th of January, which is still within the scope of this episode, the first computer virus called the elk cloner was identified in the wild. So previously only viruses had been in labs.
Sure. Okay. Number ones.
Yep.
The US had I Can't Go For That by Hall & Oates, whilst in the UK we had Oh Julie by Shakin' Stevens.
Next week we have It's a Wonderful Leap, where Sam has to win his own taxi medallion with some help from a self-professed angel. So, we'll see you in 1958.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.